Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about the physician mortgage loan. So, if you want a deep dive, you can check out the post and we'll go through a lot more detail. But for this video, I wanted to hit the high points and give you a quick snippet of how it works and some of the advantages and disadvantages, and give you kind of a starting point. So, before I go into the physician mortgage, I think it's important to really make sure we're good on the decision to buy a home in the first place. Oftentimes, in life, we get, really caught up in these emotional decisions, and, everybody wants to buy a home and own a home and, own a nice home. And that makes a lot of sense. But I think it's important to do a couple things. First of all, think about renting versus buying. So oftentimes buying gets overhyped and renting tends to get, underutilized. There's a lot of people that probably should be renting that maybe you're buying. So if you're stable and you know you're going to be in a home for a really long period of time, at least 5 years or more, buying oftentimes makes sense. If you're unsure, definitely renting, lean towards renting makes sense. When in doubt, renting is definitely a good path. It doesn't make it a bad financial decision to rent. Renting's okay. Second big thing, so if you're clear that you're going to be in a house for a long time, you want to buy. Second big thing to think about is how much should I spend? Maybe not how much can I spend, but how much should I spend? So this decision, sometimes, when we get caught up in this emotional decision, we tend to kind of put the blinders on and we don't think about all the other stuff in life that's really important. So the really big thing I would stress is taking a minute to really think about, like, what else is really important in your life. I'm sure there's other things that are important. Maybe it's traveling, maybe it's education for your children, maybe it's building a family, maybe you want to have more children, maybe you're going to get married, maybe financial independence is a big deal for you. Whatever it might be, I'm sure that there's other things beyond your house that are really important. So before you buy the house, it's really important to iron out what all those other things that are very important to you are, iron out those, and start to think of it like, okay, how is this buy decision going to affect all this other really important stuff? That's what happens when people, that's where mistakes originate. That's what happens, when people don't think about all the other important stuff. The house tends to, consume too much of the budget. And what happens is you have more house, you have less of all that other stuff. So think about all the other stuff you consider really important and start to consider, like, how does X, specific, if I spend X dollars, like 100,000, 200, 300, 400, like, how does that affect all the other stuff in my life? So for example, maybe traveling is really important to you. Maybe you spend less on the house to allow you more to travel. There's not a one size fits all. Rules of thumb do not apply to your situation. So it's important to really think of it, I think, from that standpoint. So hopefully you've thought through those two big things and maybe you're considering the physician mortgage loan. So how does the physician loan work? So physician loans, some of the big advantages, first of all, physician mortgage loans are typically going to require very little or no down payment. So maybe they say, you only have to put 5% or maybe 0% down, no money down. So it allows you to get a mortgage much sooner when you have either other uses for the money or you haven't yet saved up the funds. They also typically waive PMI, which is private mortgage insurance. That's like an added expense that gets tacked on to your mortgage payment. You don't want to have it. It's not a good thing. So a physician mortgage loan will allow you to sidestep that without having a down payment. So PMI typically goes away when you have 20% down, except for physician loans. So that's a great thing. The other big thing is they have much, we'll call them physician friendly, underwriting or qualifying specifics. So, for example, they will be more lenient on providing proof of income. In some cases, they won't require any proof of income other than maybe a signed employment agreement, which is really nice, especially if you're transitioning in life. And maybe the student loans, they'll look at those more reasonably, whereas traditional lenders will, try to come up with some calculated payment. Physician mortgage loans they'll often look at like the income-based repayment you would have, or would be required to pay. And that's, what I would consider a more reasonable or physician-friendly way of looking at underwriting. So those are the big advantages of the physician mortgage loan. They're basically, catered to you guys as physicians, which is nice. The advantages also end up being some of the disadvantages too. So some of the downsides, oftentimes they're a slightly higher interest rate. That varies by the lender. So that's, where you need to do your homework. Also, by not putting any money down, that is going to increase your risk for things like having to sell the house much sooner than planned. That might cause a situation where you have to, say, write a check to get out of the house, especially if the market has gone down. That can create a situation where you're underwater, or like you owe money more than what the house is worth, and you're going to have to write a check to leave. The last big downside is when it's easy to get a loan, that makes it more tempting to spend more. So awareness is important to counter that downside. You just need to be aware of the fact, how it's going to affect things, and, think through this logically. Think about your plan before you get into the buying decision. There's lots of different types of physician mortgage loans. Lenders, we have a full list of lenders that we have found that offer this physician mortgage loan. So check that out in the post. But different lenders will offer different variations. If you talk to multiple lenders, you can typically find like combination of types, like a fixed rate where the rate is fixed for the entire duration of the loan, or ARM rates where it's fixed for a certain period of time and then the rate becomes variable based on the market. So the fixed rate option's typical, like 30-year fixed, whereas you're just going to pay for 30 years. It's a fixed interest rate. You can predict all that. It's going to be set in stone on the front end, or maybe a 15-year even. The ARM rate is typically fixed for like 5, 7, or 10 years, and then the rate goes variable. ARM rates are often a lower interest rate than the 30-year fix. So you have to be careful with the ARM. Like if you end up in the house or with the mortgage beyond that period of time and interest rates have gone up, that can be a problem. There's a few alternatives to think about, alternatives to the physician mortgage loan. Even some with low or no down payments. You got the VA mortgage. That can be really valuable, especially if you're disabled in the military. You got the FHA loan. It's rare that that's ever the best route. It requires 3.5% down and has some, specific, requirements and costs that come with it. And then sometimes lenders will offer like a special conventional mortgage that doesn't require much down payment. They'll typically charge PMI on those, so you have to take that into consideration when you're comparing things. But for the average situation, when you don't have money to put down, the physician mortgage loan will make a whole lot of sense. Now, sometimes you might have money to put down and you're thinking, okay, well, do I put the money down or do I get the physician mortgage loan? It's a really good question. And so it's gonna depend on, what your plan is, but we'll talk about two extremes. So maybe you have not maximized your tax sheltered retirement plan, some of the really good tax shelters that are available, or maybe you have higher interest rates debt like student loans or something like that. So in that situation, the physician mortgage loan will oftentimes make a whole lot of sense because you got a lot of other stuff you could put that money to good use, getting caught up on those things. On the other hand, if you have everything maxed out and you don't have any other debt, period, a lot of times that's when putting 20% down or, some larger down payment will make a lot of sense. I think the bottom line though is that you're making a good decision, and that comes down to thinking about, like I said at the beginning, should you be renting or buying? How much would you like to spend, considering all the other important things that you value in your life? And so, how is this home decision going to affect everything else? Thinking about the big picture, not getting emotionally tied into this one decision. And on top of that, educating yourself about how it works, what the options are. It's worthwhile to talk to multiple lenders. Make sure to ask the questions, do your homework, and look at your options. I think by taking a education based approach, by thinking about your overall financial plan and working through this logically, you're going to be put in a position to where you're going to make a good decision. And that's really what we want. We don't want to have regret. We don't want to create stress. We don't want the home to cause added stress. We want it to make life better, and that's what we're after. So good luck in your home buying decision, and please reach out if you have specific questions about the whole process, or if you have additional topics you'd like us to cover. And best of luck.